Hey, hi all, Randy Roth here. It's been a while since I've made a video, but there's been something, a new development, not so new maybe to some of you, that has come up that I've been considering. Today is the season that we're in is the fire season, and one of the articles that came across my desk was how the national firefighters are completely taxed. 21,000 workers out there, and they're maxed out at the resources. All these fires everywhere. I mean, it's nothing new again this year, um, but it is new as far as this generation. You don't really hear about all that a generation ago. Yeah, there's a fire here or a fire there, but it's not to the extent that we've been seeing. And so I looked it up, because one of the judgment in the book of Revelation is that the fire consuming so much of the earth. And so I looked it up as far as the amount of hectares, which is the acreage that the world uses as far as the most common term to break down the land use. And so we have hectares in which there's, I believe it was 12 billion hectares of usable land that actually can grow things in the world. And in the last 16 years, there's 300 and some odd million hectares that are burnt every year as an average for the last 16 years. So if you multiply that, you do your Google research, you look it up, and you find, hey, look, we're already well into close to half of the world's usable land that has burnt in the last 16 years. Okay, so wait a minute. What do you mean 16 years? I mean, isn't the Great Tribulation supposed to be 7 years long? So, I mean, it's got to fit in between, a small period of time that everything's got to fry. One of the arguments that keeps coming at me is that, well, Jesus said that in the end, people will be marrying and giving into marriage, and there will be buying and selling and doing commerce. Well, so the argument they present to me is that, well, it's going to be so bad in the tribulation that people aren't going to be marrying and giving into marriage. And it's like, really? You really think that people aren't going to get a divorce because things are getting so difficult, or people are going to not get married because, oh, this might be the last opportunity to actually get married? I mean, this is the fact that people are going to be marrying and get marriage all the way up to the end, and people have to buy and sell. I mean, how are you going to eat? You're just going to go and look for something out of a garbage can like everybody else. I mean, so that argument to suggest that, hey, look, people have got to be removed before, because Jesus was talking about that when Jesus never mentioned anything about that. So what we're going to look at is the different things that have already been fulfilled, such as, let's look at the fourth horseman. The fourth horseman, 1/4 of the world's population is taken out. Okay, so if the 1/4 of the million, or 1/4 of the world's population is taken out by other means than this particular prophecy, that's the fourth horseman, do you really think that God would allow that amount of population to be taken out and there'd be no prophecy that pinpoints that? Because what I'm saying is, we've already had 1/4 of the world's population taken out. So really, when did that happen? In the last 47 years, since Roe versus Wade, I could be 42, could have my number messed up, could be another year been gone by since I did that. that research. But we've seen, I believe it is 42 million worldwide babies aborted, and that's not doesn't take into account the day after pill. I mean, you really have no way to pinpoint a number for the amount of babies killed. However, if you multiply that 42 million by the 47 years that since Roe versus Wade, and the numbers aren't accurate there, of course, but we're taking an average. You find that, hey, look, we're already at a quarter of the world's population being taken out. And that's only one aspect of the fourth horseman. I mean, it's taken out by sword, scalpel. It's taken out by pestilence. What do we have going on? We got this pandemic going on. I mean, it's really not taking out hardly anybody as far as a majority of population. I mean, cancer takes out a great number more, and loads of other diseases that we hardly even hear about takes out larger numbers than the pandemic. So the number for the fourth horseman has already been accomplished. Let's look at the judgment concerning the oceans. In the ocean today, the Pacific Ocean takes up 1/3 of the world's population of water. So what happened there in May 11th? When was that? Oh, man, that was May 11th. It's been a while now since Fukushima, since the tsunami hit Fukushima. And they've been dumping, since then, the radioactive waste into the ocean. It's been raising the temperature. It's been causing cancer in animals. It's really substantial, and it hasn't been making the news a whole lot lately, but every now and then it slips in, hey, look, they're dumping their radioactive waste again into the ocean. Okay, so the ocean still seems to be very alive, but it wouldn't take much for that to happen again. Another tsunami. What we've seen is a birthing of the destruction of the Pacific Ocean there. So we have the deaths of the pale horse. We have the fires that I'm bringing up today. The world one of the judgments says that all the grass. That's pretty substantial. So is it pinpointing a direct area? I don't know. Is it the entire world, all the grass? Well, it could be. But does that have to happen in one time frame? No, it doesn't. It doesn't say this happens all at once. No. We've been seeing over the last 16 years nearly half of the acreage being burnt up of the world. I mean, that's pretty substantial. Perhaps some of those overlap from one place to another. I know that I've seen fires burn in one area, and then the next area, yeah, it burns again. And some places they even do that on purpose. But for the most part, it isn't. When you see devastation of a forest fire, it takes years to recover. And we've been seeing that lately. In my area, it became nighttime in the middle of the day because of the whole smoke. And today we have a major drought in my area. As is the case throughout the world, there's a lot of drought that's happening. So if you adhere to a 7-year tribulation period of time that the scripture never even remotely offers, then what you're not seeing is a big picture that, hey, look, we're already experiencing a great number of fulfillments already in play. And if you're thinking that it's all this futuristic thing that's going to happen in a short period of time, you're not going to be able to see the fulfillment when it's actually occurring. So to suggest a 7-year tribulation, you are actually adhering to a prophecy, a private interpretation that John Nelson Darby had back in the 1930s, in which he got his most flack for that particular doctrine, not for the rapture idea or dispense, but for that one, he got his most opposition. I know a lot of people like to, so, oh, Darby never did it. No, Darby had nothing to do with it. And it's like, if you're going to deny his part of it, you really aren't embracing a whole lot of truth in your narrative there. So I would hope that you study to show yourself approved, so that you can actually rightly divide what is already written. We're not called to interpret Scripture. We're called to rightly divide what is already written. And so when somebody says, hey, look, that's your interpretation, I really try to avoid any interpretation whatsoever and say, hey, look, this is what it says. What are the facts? What's going on? Is this that, or is it something else? I really don't believe that 250,000 of the world's population would be taken out, and the Scripture doesn't recognize that portion of the population, but some other portion that is supposed to be futuristic at some point. All right. Hope this is helpful. Take care.